Hello, welcome back to the game room. Yet again, it's time to turn the clock back. How far back are we going? 22, 23 years maybe? 95? Seems like only yesterday. But yeah, I was leafing through my copies of Edge. You know my feelings about Edge magazine, the best multi-format publication when it comes to video gaming ever. There is no argument, and this one stood out. This one stood out to me because the front cover is one of my all-time favourite games. Fade to Black, Delphin's 3D World beta. I'm no expert, so I don't know what the connection is to Flashback and Another World, but equally, all three of those games I love to bits. I imagine they were all Delphin, were they? Help me out here, folks. I really can't remember. You know how it is on here. I don't do any research. It's all ad hoc, on the fly, and all genuine, I like to believe. But this is quite a slim edition. Lots of adverts. Now, despite that, it's quite an important time, really. I think we are literally on the verge of the PlayStation 1, the 3DO. The 3DO is in difficulty, and I think 3DO M2, wasn't that the upgrade? Wasn't that going to save the 3DO? I really cannot remember. All the formats again are listed up here, so you can see how complicated things were back then. So we've got Sony, Sega, Nintendo, 3DO, PC, Amiga as well, Atari, SNK, Arcade, NEC, CDI. You know, it was such a crowded market. It really was back then. And it would become even more crowded a few years after that, I suppose, with the PS2, Xbox Original, Dreamcast, GameCube, so many contenders, I suppose. So this is issue number 26, and yeah, November 1995. It would have cost you £3.50 back then. And there's still quite a few, I'll be honest with you, there's still quite a few copies that I want to get. Quite a few emissions in my collection that I really want to get. So we'll have a quick look. I want to apologise now because I've got this light on kind of over here and it's giving a bit of an awful glare. It really is. So straight away you're into the PlayStation 1, which is just literally around the corner. Contents and blah blah blah. There's quite a good thing in this one. Strategic moves, looking at strategy games and AI and everything else. Again, just up and coming news. Lots and lots of hype about the PlayStation. There's quite an interesting article here about Nvidia. Nvidia brings Saturn to the PC. A new PC graphics chip is set to outclass the consoles. I can't put this down, I'm afraid, because of that glare. Oh, actually I can. I think I can to a certain extent. Again, it's important to remember that PCs were on the back foot. You know, back in these few years, they were on the back foot performance-wise, and I think consoles were kind of running ahead of them, really, power-wise. So I don't know what that means. Whether it means the PC got some kind of Saturn capability chipset. I'm not quite sure where that would have stood copyright-wise. Microsoft on the box. Again, more stories about graphics. Lots of it is about the PC and getting its act together, catching up. You can argue all you like that you could PCs could perform and outperform say the PlayStation 1, but the cost was so prohibitive back then. It was just crazy. It really was crazy. Windows 95 lives up to the hype. I was quite a fan of Windows 95. I always found it to be quite a solid platform. This is interesting. Philips calls for a DVD ceasefire. I was reading this earlier, and it talks about the negotiations opened up between various companies on arriving at a standard and a format. I think we could all argue that it went the right way this time. Philips enters the World Wide Web on your Philips CDI. I never realised it had that. We've got this rather charming lady here demoing the CDI's internet capabilities. 3D Rife at JAMA. It's really not my thing. I really don't know a lot about the arcade scene, to be honest with you, even back then. 3DO. See, it's weird. This edition of Edge is weird the way it's laid out, because the letters page comes quite early. So it's kind of a bit of a mess, really, to be honest with you. More letters, more opinions. Before you could troll people on the interweb. Pre-screen, so pre-screen regular feature for Edge. Stuff that's up and coming, but not quite there. Can't really be reviewed. Quake. What can I say about Quake? One of my favourites on the PC, and also on the I had a lot of time for the Dreamcast version. One of the very first games that I went online with on the PC. Loved it to bits. I remember my first PC being slightly short of RAM trying to run this, and it used to give me a warning, flash up a warning sign that I was running out of RAM. Some of the more complicated levels and stuff, so I upgraded my PC. Love this to bits. The soundtrack, everything, the architecture, level design. And I think I've got it. I've got the Saturn version, and I never realised there was an N64 version of this. I'd love to see that, because I like to see how different games like this were interpreted on different platforms. I might get the N64 version. I don't think it's that expensive. Try and pick it up. I think it's about £15–20. More Quake. What else did Quake appear on? Quake 2 appeared on the PlayStation 1. Quake 3 on the Dreamcast. So yeah, and the original Quake on the N64, as well as the Saturn. Biohazard. I was every shred of information I could get hold of about this game, I was all over it. This was the primary reason why I was going to get a PlayStation 1 on launch. I was so hyped. It was unbelievable for this game. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And what I really like about this article is it acknowledges, which nobody seems to do nowadays, it actually acknowledges the role of Alone in the Dark. So it says there, Biohazard, Capcom's Alone in the Dark alike is set in a mansion infested with a flesh-altering virus. But can it surpass Infogrames' classic? Because I was a big fan of Alone in the Dark, and I think Alone in the Dark 2, was it 2? One of them appeared on the PlayStation 1. Really bizarre and cryptic puzzles though. Oh, the impact Resident Evil had on me. It was just it was night and day, you know, it really was. Games became so immersive, the audio, the atmosphere, it just, you know. I could go on, but I'll spare you that. Super Mario RPG, I don't have a clue. You know, I'm not a major Nintendo fan. Daytel, my god, look at all the Daytel products, eh? Oh, do you remember that thing? The Interactor. Because it used to strap it on and it'd be like a subwoofer or something in the back that used to vibrate. So bizarre. Imagine wearing that and everything else, you know. I really didn't like the whole philosophy behind all the cheat cartridges and everything else. I just couldn't see the point. Burn Cycle. CD-ROM, you can get that on your CDI as well if you've still got your CDI by then. Toshinden 2. I didn't mind Toshinden on the PlayStation, and I remember being quite impressed with the demo that came with the PlayStation. Dark Saviour on a Saturn. No opinion at all on Saturn stuff. I never had a Saturn. Legend of Thor. Fighting Vipers in the arcade. I don't think I had a lot of time in arcades for these years, to be honest with you, so I would have missed out a lot of stuff. Techno Plus. What on earth is this? Right, okay, so it seems to be like some kind of sound card. Right, seems to do a bit of everything. There's that article I was telling you about. It's quite a good article, this, about AI and strategy games. I was really into, I suppose it would have been Sim City was my kind of thing. The Settlers, that was a good game that I completely forgotten about. Back issues. I think I'll fill this out later and send it off because I do have a few back issues that I need. Subscribe now and you can save £7. You've got your direct debit form there, set that up, it's nice and convenient. Or else, I remember in WH Smith you could have your own little drawer and your subscriptions would be left. Well, they weren't even subscriptions, it was a shop that used to put your copy of your magazines in the drawer. They may still do that. I mean, I'm actually amazed that WH Smith is still going. The 3DO, all this, and M2. First step or last step chance. Or last chance for 3DO. Yeah, so the M2 was obviously new. Was it new hardware or something? I really don't know. I've said it before on the channel. I came that close. Literally that close to buying a 3DO. All because of games like the Need for Speed. The Need for Speed really nearly clinched it for me until I heard it was coming on a PlayStation 1. It was so, if I'm right, it was so overpriced, it was so expensive, the 3DO. But then it wasn't really overpriced. I mean, it was probably slightly ahead of its time, I suppose, power-wise. I remember there being quite an embarrassment about one of the demos that was played for the 3DO, and essentially it was just a rendered image, and even I could tell that back then. I was like, well, any CD based machine with you know, the most, I don't know, the remotest feature for FMV could have done that. Good old Trip Hawkins. He once predicted, I remember him being on a documentary, and he predicted that 3DO would become as synonymous as VHS logo. So everything would be interchangeable. So quite a lot on this M2 hardware. I haven't read the whole lot on this. I might go back and read that stuff about the M2. I don't know if it was a completely new machine, was it, or new hardware. I don't know anything about it, in all honesty. Oh look, Poed. Is that how you pronounce that? Poed? I actually went through that and finished that on the PlayStation 1. I must actually get that back. I don't have that for some reason. It wasn't a great game, but you know. Okay, so we must be on test screen, and I missed it. Were we on test screen straight away? Straight into test screen? Looks like we are. Yoshi's Island or Yoshi's Island, depending on where you live. Yep, I missed out on this. Good to see the SNES though, isn't it? In rude health at this point. What do they give that? It gets, well, it gets a 9 out of 10. That. Very impressive. Very impressive. Ah, Destruction Derby, PlayStation. Another reason why I bought the PlayStation 1 on launch. I love this game to bits. I've just noticed they gave it a 7. And to be honest with you, I think the 7 out of 10 is right for this. I really do, because once you got past the visuals and the damage and everything else, you know, it wasn't, let's face it wasn't the deepest of racing games. But it's one of my favourites, full stop. Even the soundtrack is really good on this. I can't really comment on how reliable the link-up mode was. I played loads of link-up games on the PS1, but unfortunately we never got around to playing this one. I'm not a massive fan of the second one. I didn't like the way they introduced those like really exaggerated, bizarre physics when the cars could be like, you know, 60 foot in the air and spinning round and everything else. I much preferred the first one. Fade to Black. The reason why I picked up this this edition. This was an amazing game. It really was. I'm not sure how well it's aged, to be honest with you, but now I've got the CRT, I would like to take the time and the trouble to play it again. I finished it back in the day. I loved it to bits. So immersive. Great story. Fantastic audio. And to put it into context, I mean, Flashback is one of my all-time favourites, and I've finished that so many times. I've completed Flashback on a Mega Drive quite a few times. Never played the remake. I never really heard too many good things about the remake. I think it was quite flawed with its control system for whatever reason. Chrono Trigger, SNES. Never played it. Bug on the Saturn. I did play that. I never had a Saturn. I must have played. Someone must have had a Saturn or something. Again, it was that kind of 2.5D approach. You were kind of walking side to side, or walking in, or walking away from the screen. So it never really blew my socks off in the way that, say, Mario 64 would have, or Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider. You know, that we really did have that complete freedom of movement. So I don't know what it's like. It only gets a 6, funnily enough, 6 out of 10. But again, it's published by Sega. I mean, were Sega still looking for maybe a new mascot for the 32-bit era? I don't know. Zero Defied, just by the look of it, I probably wouldn't have liked it, so I would have avoided that kind of thing. I mean, look at the price of games back then, £52. People bloody moan about the price of games now. £52, and you're building your 22, 23 years worth of inflation. Crazy. This is what I like in this issue. Retro view, so they've gone back to look at Jet Set Willy on a Spectrum. That would have cost you a fiver. 1984 Jet Set Willy. And I think it's all adverts. I think it's all adverts from here on. As Edge has always been, it's all industry adverts, most of it. That's one way of advertising a job: sex, drugs and rock and roll. I think they might have been over-egging that a little bit, don't you? Lots of adverts in this one. Who's this guy? Right, somebody from Sony. Getting the hype train moving. Quite justifiably, really. The PlayStation was fantastic, and the culture that surrounded it. One of my high points, the PlayStation. It's just unfortunate for Sega that Sega laid their cards down on the table slightly too early, in my opinion, and they would do exactly the same with the Dreamcast. But I don't like people to criticise the Dreamcast. It's one of my all-time favourite consoles. It is so ahead of its time. And regular adverts, I think. Look at this, PlayStation. So with these imports, they must have been full screen, full colour, full speed machines. £380 with a choice of game, step down transformer and SCART conversion. Give them a call. Give them a call, see if they can get you one. Ultra 64. The myth becomes a reality. The Ultimate Future Games tells you everything you need to know. And then we've got Q&A. And there you have it. And next month we've got something on Edge interviewing Sega's AM3 coin-up division. So there you go. There you go. Another copy of Edge from November 1995. As I said, it's fairly thin, that one. Not a great deal in there, but it's what is in there I think is important, yeah? It was kind of like a key moment where literally we've already embarked on a 32-bit era. You know, there's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, and we're really seeing proper immersive games like this, for example, Resident Evil. I don't include things like Quake in that because despite their technical achievements, there was no real narrative there, nothing to hook you, you know. But yeah, a really interesting time. Would I like to get a 3DO in the collection? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have no idea how much they are now, how reliable they are. But as I said, there were certain games on a 3DO. They ended up on a PlayStation 1. So, and I can't think of the shop. It was somewhere on the Edgware Road. I went into an electrical shop, you know, like an audio, hi-fi, that kind of shop with big, and they were selling these like Pioneer 60-inch, 50-inch projected TVs. And that afternoon I went in there and I saw the Need for Speed running on one of these Pioneer 50-inch TVs, and I was totally blown away. And I said to the guy, "What is that? What is that games console?" And it was a 3DO. So I went off. That was it. I'm going to get one. I picked up some magazines, worked out what was going on, because I haven't always been that engaged with gaming. You know, what with life and everything else. And unfortunately for 3DO, I found out it was going to be on Sony's new amazing PlayStation, so I held on to that money. Good job, really. But there you go. Thanks for sticking with me. You guys take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.